one of the big things, one of the big moments, and it's not just one moment, but a time period, I guess, is when the expectant mom delivers. She's in the hospital, and it can be really stressful time. It could be a really great time. I mean, there's lots of different emotions that go through it, and agencies often will help the expectant parent kind of plan out how they want it to go, and they'll talk to you about it as well. I know you do the same thing for your clients. Why don't you talk about a little bit about how you help people plan for that moment, and then I'd love to hear your guys' experiences with what it was like in the hospital.
Well, if we're, how we focus it, obviously, with the agency, they're just in doing all the work. We don't typically involve. Matter of fact, as an attorney who has a client who's dealing with an agency, I really don't come in till after they place the child. I would rather have my client start in the very beginning and start the contracts and so forth, but they don't. So, but if we're doing the independent, adoption, the attorney really needs to get involved and be a part of that process and plan it out from top to bottom.
Or at least maybe hire a social worker to.
Well, we like I said, we direct and we make sure that everything is put into place. So, for example, the very first thing we do at our office is try to understand what we're looking at in the way of how the expenses will be covered. We deal with those issues. Is Medicaid involved? And if so, we typically have our adoptive parent or parents take the birth mother down to the hospital and pre-register them and get that Medicaid card on file, so there's no surprises. And then, or just at least know that they're going to be paying for the adoption or the birthing expenses and so forth, if that's the plan. But then we personally contact the hospital, our office does. We try to get points of contact at that hospital, let them know that the adoption or that the baby's or let them know who the baby is, the birth mother and so forth, and that the child be adopted. And then we have that point of contact so that when the child is, or the birth mother goes into the hospital, to deliver, that we're reaching out to them again to establish that. We also want to know their policies and how they deal with the birth parent as well as the adoptive parents. Some hospitals will set up a separate room and allow the adoptive couple to be in that separate room with the child, and then the final thing we do is we discuss with them the idea of whether or not relinquishments will be taken there at the hospital and their policies and so forth, because we don't want any surprises. And then often, if the relinquishment will be done in the hospital, the person who will be appointed by the court to take that relinquishment will often contact the adoptive parent and see the birth parent, the birth mother, to find out how would she like to see things done. What's her plan? And talk with them about it. So there's a lot of pre-planning that goes into effect.
What was it like for you guys, the hospital experience, kind of up until relinquishment?
I think the word that I hear most associated with the hospital with adoption is bittersweet. It's a joyful time, a new life is coming into the world, these beautiful babies come, but it's also a loss for the birth parent. And it's hard as the adoptive parent to see them go through that loss. You kind of mourn it with them, and it's hard because you're gaining, they're losing, and there's this weird shift of circumstances, and it is hard to process all of it. You really have to, there's really no other way to explain it other than bittersweet, and just there's a lot of love going on, which I love, because these sweet kids come into the world and they are loved from every aspect. They really are. It's a huge sacrifice for these birth parents, and a loving decision, I think, made for this child. But as far as the hospital aspect goes, I think it's really important to communicate with the hospital staff very clearly what you would like to have happen. I always wanted the birth mom to make the plan because it's her experience. I want her memories of this experience to be what she wants them to be. And so
when you talk about planning, you're talking about Does she want to see the child?
Exactly. Details.
Does she want us to come to the hospital?
Yeah.
Does she not want us to come to the
Or does she
hospital?
only
Yes.
want you there when she invites you, or
Yes.
does she want you there all the time?
Yeah.
Or what's the code word when she doesn't want to be rude
Yes.
and kick you out, but she wants to kick
She
you out?
needs to be alone. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah. I
You
mean,
need to
this
really
kind of
talk
thing.
through what's going to happen with the birth. Okay, this is what happens. You know, people go to Lamaze classes. Well, with adoption, you really need to talk about who do you want to hold the baby first? Who would you like to be present in the room? Who would you like to see the next day? You know, all of those things need to be thought about, and even the birth mom can make that plan and she might change it. And as the adoptive family, you need to be flexible and let her do that and not make a fuss or complain about it. You just need to say, yes, we love you and we'll do what you want, because really that's their time and you need to respect that.
And I think because of the fact that it's a very bitter, sweet experience, and because of the high emotional experience that it is, that's why we do a lot of planning in the beginning. And there are a lot of things that can be done, but again, it's hypercritical.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely is. And I think when you have that plan, it's really important to clearly convey that to the hospital staff. Because if they're not in on it, that can really cause
can
problems. And we've had those experiences too, where I've really had to even stand up for our birth parents before and say, you need to back off. This isn't working for this birth parent, you know, because the hospital has their own thoughts on how things should go sometimes.
And Nicole, you kind of have had some struggles in the hospital, at least with the hospital kind of pushing on the birth mother things that she didn't really, ways to do things that she really didn't want.
That's what I loved about having the agency and a caseworker specifically for her, is she really stood up for her and was just, laid it down and said, no, this was the plan. We talked about it beforehand. And so that was really helpful to do all of the planning, and then again to have her there to be her advocate.
Advocates.
And to really follow through.
Birth parents have to have an advocate,
It's-
and you just have to make sure if you do an independent adoption that they need an advocate.
And you're right. It is so bittersweet and so full of emotion. And I think emotions ride so high, and you react, and you don't want to be, out of control, but you're trying to keep everything together. And it is such an emotional time for everyone on all aspects.
And it's important to know that every hospital has a social worker there on staff. And that's why we always want to know who they are. We want to have talk to them. We usually speak with the director of the floor, somewhere along those lines. So we have contacts. We know who they are, and I think it's so important.
When there's
But
an
again,
adoption,
involved
Bill
in-
will find you.
Yeah.
They usually
Yeah,
find you.
But if you that's great, they'll find you. But I'm saying it's important to start it out well before and have the discussion. This is what we'd like to do. This is how we'd like to
I
go.
think the key is, if you are having issues with hospital staff, that you stay calm, but you can ask them, is this a policy or is this just your personal preference?
I agree.
Is this something that can be worked around? Because this is, and for the most part, it doesn't even need to be stuff that you need to work around as an adoptive parent. If there's things that the birth mom wants, then you advocate for her to make those things happen.
Even simple things like a shirt. They wouldn't let her have the shirt. And I was like, we'll figure it out how to pay for it later. Please just take it. Like,
I don't
it
think
was
the
a
hospital
simple thing,
staff
but it's a big
realizes,
deal.
yeah. There's memories being made there for this
Yeah.
birth mom, and if she wants the shirt that she labored in, then let her take the shirt. You know
It was
what I
the
mean?
baby shirt.
Yes.
But I think
Yes.
shirt.
But I agree with you. I agree that staying calm is important. It seems like when you go in there and you start becoming a bull in the china shop, you start getting less, and so forth. So it's important.